start the Christmas Cabled Cowl, we're going to do the chain cast on. So you take your yarn, and this is a worsted weight yarn, and put it behind your starter peg and pull it through. Of course, I grabbed 2 pegs. Oops. And then I'm going to take this and just go behind and pull through every stitch. And I'm going to tie that string onto the front. And this is how I like to do it. You can also, there's other ways people do it with their crochet needle, but this is the way I like to do a chain cast on. So as I'm finishing up the chain cast on, just pulling through each one, and then when I get to the last loop, you're just going to put the loop over the top of that last peg and pull it tight. And now I'm ready for my second row, and I'm just going to E-wrap all the way around. So I'm finishing E-wrapping all the way around to the front of my loom. Okay, and now I'm going to stop. Now the first 2 rows of this pattern after I do the chain cast on is a knit row and then a purl row, which creates a garter stitch and makes it stay flat instead of curling. And I can do the garter stitch trick, which will make this process easier. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So in order to do that, I take the bottom row over the top, and that's my knit stitch. And now I'm going to do a garter stitch right away off that same peg. So I go down and up, and this first one is always a little bit tight. I have to kind of pry it off a little bit. And then put that one back on and pull it tight. Now I'm picking over and then doing the garter stitch right away. And doing that purl stitch. Off, put it back on, and I'll do the next one. Or I do that all the way around. Okay, so I'm doing the last few stitches. Pick over for the knit stitch, and then we do our purl stitch to make our garter row. Now we're ready to start our pattern. Now for our pattern, what we're going to do is the starter peg, and then all the green pegs are E-wrap. So I'm going to E-wrap these 2 and pick over, and then the red we purl. E-wrap the green, purl the red. And we're going to do that all the way around for 6 rows. After you've done 6 rows of the pattern, the 2 knit purl pattern, then we're going to do our first cable cross, and we're doing a 2-stitch right twist. So you take the first loop off, and I like to hold it with my fingers behind the pegs, and then I take off the second loop, and the second loop I cross over, and then I put the first loop back on this peg and the second loop on the first peg. So I've created my first cable cross, and then I take my yarn and I E-wrap around and knit over, and that seals that first crossover. And then the red pegs I'm going to purl. Every red peg is a purl, and then I'm back to 2 green pegs, and I'm doing the 2 peg right. And the reason it's a right cable is because the right one comes across and is in front of the left one. Pull that. Sometimes you can use a stitch marker, sometimes that's helpful, or another pick to hold those. You just have to get them open and cross them, and then E-wrap and pick over. The most important part is that that first loop stays behind the other pegs. We'll do one more. This first loop comes off, stays behind. The second one comes off and goes in front, so it's crossed like this. And then the first loop goes on the second peg, and this, oops, lost my loop there. That goes on this peg. So you've made your cross, E-wrap, pick over. And you do that all the way around till you get back to the beginning. I'm on my last 2 cable crosses. So pull it behind. And I like to use my pick to pull that open. Get it on, put the other one on. E-wrap, pick over, purl my red, and last one, put off, cross, I use my pick to open that up, pull it out, move that one up, purl, and we're back to the beginning. Now we're going to go back to our 2 E-wrap, purl, 2 E-wrap, purl, all the way around, and we're going to do that pattern for another 11 rows. Once you have done 11 more rows after the first cable, you can kind of see how that's turning out. You will start again in doing the cross just as we did before, and that will be your second cable cross to take it back over the other side, and those are done exactly the same way as we just showed you. I'm on my last 2 cable crosses, so pull it behind, and I like to use my pick to pull that open, get it on, put the other one on, E-wrap, pick over, purl my red, and last one, put off, cross, I use my pick to open that up, pull it out, move that one up, purl. Alright, so I'm finishing up my cowl. I did 6 rows of the 2 knit, 1 purl all the way around after my first garter stitch, and then did the right cable cross, and then did another 11 stitches, and then did the right cable cross again, and now 6 stitches, and then I did another row of the knit purl to make the garter stitch. Now the first 2 rows of this pattern after I do the chain cast on is a knit row and then a purl row, which creates a garter stitch and makes it stay flat instead of curling. And I can do the garter stitch trick, which will make this process easier. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So in order to do that, I take the bottom row over the top, and that's my knit stitch. And now I'm going to do a garter stitch right away off that same peg. So I go down and up, and this first one is always a little bit tight. I have to kind of pry it off a little bit. and then put that one back on and pull it tight. Now I'm picking over and then doing the garter stitch right away and doing that purl stitch. Off, put it back on, and I'll do the next one. Forward. I do that all the way around. And now I'm doing my bind off, and I'm doing the super stretchy bind off. And the super stretchy bind off is when you go forward 2, back 1, and you go pull up when you go forward and go down when you go back. And I'll attach a video to show that. And then this beautiful cowl on the Christmas cowl will be done on a 1/2 inch loom with a number 4 yarn, so it's a lot more lacy than when you're using a number 5 yarn on the 1/2 inch or a number 6 yarn on the 5/8. But I really like the look of it.